Welcome back to the CX Luster Show, spotlighting the best in customer experience. Today we're joined by Lynn Hunsaker, the name directly connected with CX excellence. As the Chief Customer Officer at ClearAction Continuum and the visionary behind the Ease of Work and Business Growth newsletter, Lynn's insights have made it her top voice in our industry. Lynn, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure as well.
Great. Lee, many companies heavily invested in technology to improve customer experience. However, there's a debate about whether technology overshadows the human touch. What's your take on this?
Well, I've noticed that a lot more things are digitalized than we had in 2019. Of course, the pandemic was a big uh, propeller for that. But what I'm also noticing is a lack of feedback loops. It's kind of like once something is launched or executed, it's kind of going, walk away from that. And that's a big mistake because there's always fine tuning, there's always um, outliers or other use cases that you hadn't considered. And unless you have a feedback loop to continually uh, assess whether things are really working well, you may be actually alienating customers as much as you're being helpful and efficient with customers. For example, um, I've been a customer of a couple of companies for a couple of decades, and I've always felt great about those brands. But then when I needed help for something, and it seemed like a very simple question, I did look through all of the self service options and couldn't find the answer there. When I called in, it was redirecting me to the chat and other self help again. These sometimes it couldn't recognize my name. Sometimes it was just taking quite a long time to get a very small answer, and these things just seemed like it wasn't in, it wasn't in accordance with the loyalty that I had shown those brands, right? So even though I had these relationships for a long time with the brands, these technology experiences were not helpful, and therefore it created an opportunity for me to think about going to other brands. So this is one of the big cautions for technology, making sure that you still have some way to check in and to make things more personable as needed.
Totally. I encounter this myself every single day. I hear this company saying, "Yes, we're using AI," and then when when you need it the most, when you think that automated support or self-serve services can really, make your experience more lighter, it never happens. No, I
Yeah, sometimes it works, but it's always really good to have some feedback loops that allow you to intervene whenever necessary or allow a different path for customers to take rather than alienating them after you've worked so hard to create a strong, lengthy relationship.
through that. There's a rising trend of companies collecting vast amounts of customer data. Some argue it's invasive, while others believe that it's essential for personalized experiences. Where do you stand on this? I mean, is there a line that shouldn't be crossed?
Well, sure. I think the laws that have been passed in the past 10 years or so have really helped to define what those lines are. But again, it's just like my comments earlier. It's always best to not get uh, too deep into the project that you have, where you're losing sight of the actual relationship building that you're trying to do. Everything we do in customer experience should be aimed at maximizing lifetime value. That's really the point. Without any customer experience people, we could still have business going on. But with customer experience, we're hoping that we're maximizing retention, expansion, and duration of relationships. And so that's where the big R comes in CRM. It's not just customer revenue management, it's customer relationship management. So, one of the things about this massive data, first of all, when I go on websites, the constant thing about cookies and accepting their privacy stuff, if we could make that simpler, that would be great. I mean, it's just constant. In some sites I go to, I've already selected my choices and it continually asks me. And it's really, again, taking away from the strength of the relationship.
I know exactly what you're talking about. As a
Yeah, have
marketer,
you seen that?
I witnessed that firsthand and so many other companies that, you put this cookie banner on your website, you accept the cookies or you reject them, or you accept some of them, right? You also have that option.
Mm-hmm.
Some occasions. And then nothing really happens. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't update anything in the back end. And this is the worst.
That is the worst because nobody likes repetitive stuff, right? Customers don't even want to do any kind of administrative thing like that. They're coming to your site for some information or whatever, and that's an extra step that gets in the way, especially when they can't access the site at all. That happens sometimes on some sites. But you know what I think is a better use of all this vast amount of customer data? We should not just be using it only for personalizing and various marketing and service touchpoint management. We should be using this vast customer data to inform all of the areas in our company that are trying to grow, all the areas in our company that are trying to become more efficient. There really should be a small team uh, globally or at the corporate level that is supervising the clarification of customer data, especially unstructured, and channeling all of that to the different groups across the company as the basis and guidelines for their performance standards. Um, Everyone thinks they're doing a great job, but they're actually, you know, at some point in the year, almost every department is creating some cost to customer service.
I think you
So, yeah,
just talked about the new role here, the rise of the customer success or company success officers or managers.
yeah.
Entail.
So it's one thing to manage touch points, and that's really, controlling something that is within your bounds. But it's better to actually influence everything the company does, which is basically making this customer data a North Star for how decisions are made across your company.
Absolutely. No, data KPIs. We touched briefly on the LTV side of things, but I think that companies should be more attached to KPIs and milestones and goals and people that work in the company for the company and actually track accordingly. Um, you've been vocal about the importance of understanding the customer journey. What is that one thing you believe companies are doing wrong in this area? I mean, that they should stop immediately.
Well, I think that there's way too much surveying done after every transaction to see whether the agent did a good job. It's not really necessary these days for a couple of reasons. One, we actually have technology available that can track whether the people on calling you were having a very tense sentiment at the beginning and possibly a relaxed sentiment at the end of the call. This is generally evidence enough that you actually succeeded in turning around a potential defection, turning around potential negative word of mouth that would have diluted your marketing and sales dollars. And customer service managers should actually take credit for that and tally it up. How much are all those customers worth in terms of revenue today, revenue this month or this year? And report that, because you may find that the turnarounds that you're affecting are actually higher value than what sales is bringing in month by month. And therefore, it would remove a lot of pressure on customer service to not to be a cost center, because in fact, customer service actually is not a cost center when you think about it like this. They are a turnaround center. They're also a center of vast customer insight. When you mine that data, use the technologies we have to collect what customers are already telling you, it can go a long way to what I was just talking about for these vast amounts of customer data becoming a North Star for how you're making decisions and handoffs.
I think also to your point, um, we should also probably look at the way that customer service is being compensated for the work. Think it's
For
an important
sure.
think it's an important point that I'm not sure if it's been discussed in closed rooms in certain companies or not, but I think that the compensation is a huge factor in terms of determination and in terms of the way they work today.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense really when you think about what they're actually achieving and accomplishing for the company. Now there are brands who've decided to not have customer service. It's pretty rare, but one that comes to mind in the past year is Frontier Airlines. It's an economy airline in the Western United States. And they just said, look, we don't have an 800 number. You can't call. You can go to the website and work it out on your own. Or you can go and have certain services at the gate and so on, but you pay for every service, $5 here, $10 there, that type of thing. So that's their business model. And everyone could do that. But why do we not do that? Because without customer service, you actually run the risk of having a lot of extra negative word of mouth that is unchecked. There's no way of turning it around except for marketing trying to be a bigger megaphone. Secondly, you're missing out on quite a lot of insights for what's broken or what needs to be more efficient in your company. Thirdly, you're avoiding lawsuits, right? Because customers that are pretty upset about something not going well could actually sue you because they bought whatever it was in good faith and then it didn't work. So, for many reasons, customer service should be claiming a lot more credit. And I think that the metrics we're using are not quite the right metrics. Sure, we should be collecting that stuff, but it shouldn't be the focus because all of the metrics, such as effort score, first contact resolution, net promoter, customer health score, market share, whatever, all of those metrics are lagging indicators because customers are telling you what already happened. This wasn't on time. This was defective. I'm not happy about this, or I didn't experience a good thing, or I've put my money here, I put my money there. Every single one of those metrics is reactive or a lagging indicator. What you really need to do is to use those customer insights, what I'm talking about, the vast customer data where you can mine that and especially pay attention to comments that customers are saying and sentiment, and use that throughout the company, touch points and non-customer facing, to identify what needs to be mistake proofed. When you identify what needs to be mistake proofed, now you're in the driver's seat for controlling an improvement that customers will continually reward. You're in the driver's seat for preventing unnecessary costs and turning the tide of prevalent issues to be erased. Something was a prevalent issue for the past 9 months, past 9 years. If you can mistake proof that issue, then it's never going to be a problem in the future. And therefore, it's extremely high savings. And this is actually what we did when I led company wide customer experience at Applied Materials in the San Francisco area, we focused on these mistake proofing metrics and we called it customer critical factors. So, sure, every group had their own customer critical factor, which may have been something about timeliness or something about a defect or whatever, capability, knowledgeability, user friendliness, anything like that. But it didn't really matter what each department was focusing on. We knew that every department had a customer critical factor, which was a mistake proofing of something at the root of these key drivers of customer loyalty. And therefore, we actually saved our customers millions of hours, millions of worry moments, and millions of dollars, and so on, to to free up their time. And it was marketing gold, and we did it year after year. Every single business unit, every single department had two things that they were focusing on every year, and therefore we had over 100 things going on across the company simultaneously to substantially improve customer experience. I think that our world would be better if we could do that for the last half of this decade.
Couldn't agree more. To your point about the fact that it should touch basically everyone at the company, I think it also has to do a lot with the maturity level of the company, which kind of connects me back again to KPIs. I mean, many businesses focus on short goals and short-term metrics and KPIs, potentially at the expense of long-term customer loyalty. How do you feel about this? I mean, is there a balance to be struck, or should be, the focus should shift entirely?
I don't think that you should wait until you've been in existence for 10 years or 30 years or 100 years before you feel like your company's mature to try this. I think everyone should just be doing it. It's plain common sense. Your customers are trying to give you money, and somehow we're making it hard for them, right? We're tying up their time, we're creating extra hurdles for them. It's ridiculous. You have a marketing plan that says, hey, here's our value proposition. We'll provide you with X if you give us Y. And by the way, onboarding time or delivery time is such and such weight, right? So customers know from the outset, what is your value proposition? And they've chosen you as the better value. So they're expecting X, right? That is what they bought. Now, why do they need to get customer service? Because they got X minus Y minus Z minus L minus M minus Q, whatever. So it's not a good deal for customers, and it's not a good deal for you. Anything that you're doing, no matter if your company started last week or you've been around for 200 years, anything you do that bothers customers is going to cost you. It's either that they're requiring help from you, requiring remedies and refunds and escalations and so on, or they're just not telling you and they're going off somewhere else. You have no recourse on that. Or they're telling a lot of other people about their frustration, which makes it harder to win those people who heard that. So everything you do that bothers customers costs you. And regardless of whether you're trying to have an initial public offering and go public, so you want to, just get the net recurring revenue and forget everything else, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And I think our whole world could just be happier if we were managing more sensibly.
Completely. Lastly, with the rise of AI and automation, there is a fear that the essence of customer experience might get lost. How do you envision the future of CX in an AI-dominated world? I mean, are there any pitfalls companies should be wary of?
Yeah, well, I think what they're talking about there is probably, are we losing the human touch? So again, I think that we need to be looking at what is our value proposition. For some things, I don't really need a human touch. I can look around at 1,000 things in this room that I'm in right now: books, mirror, desk, uh, the paint, the window coverings, everything. My gosh, if I didn't have to contact the maker for that or the retailer, my life is a lot easier when I don't have to contact them. It's,
I always and I always thought, to your point, I always thought it is like a generational thing that the new breed of customers, I'm talking about Gen Z, and probably now millennials, um, they don't want to talk to customer service. They just want
yeah.
to do it on their own. And then maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think it doesn't really matter. I think even senior citizens don't really want to spend their time messing around with stuff. People just want to wake up in the morning and go about their day doing whatever they're trying to do in their life, whether business or consumer. We don't really want to be troubleshooting for things. Trouble happens often enough just in life, right? We don't need it to happen with who we're buying from. So ideally, whatever your business model is, if it's high touch or low touch, you should just be giving people whatever they bought without requiring things that were unexpected, right? So when you're noticing that there's a trend of things that are unexpected for customers, it's always important to mistake proof it. And therefore, you save everyone a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of stress. And well, I think that the other thing we need to be considering for AI, going back to your question, is how accurate it really is. Because when you think about artificial intelligence or machine learning, it draws upon the data set that you have. So if your data set is truncated, if your data set is not complete, then the AI is only as good as that. So where it comes from to customer experience is there is a tremendous treasure trove in what customers have told you when they contacted you for chat, email, phone calls, whatever. Anything that you can collect digitally that customers are telling you, and then put that into the data set. It will be a lot more complete when you do artificial intelligence because it's drawing on customers saying, hey, I was expecting this, and now this thing happened, and now my consequences is that. That's a treasure trove that you do not get in your typical focus group, user group, panel, advisory board, surveys of any type. And unless we're capturing that as a basis for artificial intelligence, well, we're really handicapping ourselves in many use cases. Although I do believe that there's some use cases for our artificial intelligence that don't necessarily need to rely on all of that, but probably most do.
There is one very common um, in the field of generative AI. I'm sure you heard about it or familiar.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea, and that's part of the things that we do here at Glassix, that
Hmm.
we couple conversational AI with GPT-4 engine.
Hmm.
Gives a vast majority of opportunities for support agents, such as um, suggested replies. So, for example, if a customer or customers asks repetitive questions, they this could be suggested as responses for the agents using GPT-4 conversational AI, and that just saves them a ton of time.
Oh, yeah. I think that's tremendous. Anything that can make stuff easier and more coordinated. For example, minimizing silos, having multi channel crossover. That's a huge advantage to everybody. Think about the number of times that you might have bought from some brick and mortar and then also bought from the same brand online or whatever. And somehow those databases don't touch or they're different business units. And when you need help on those items together, it's a mess. So if you have the wherewithal to use artificial intelligence and other things to bridge those silos, that's really a huge value.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing that uh, might worth mentioning is we also have a model, a feature actually that helps summarizing the conversations. So let's say a
Mm,
agent had a long conversation, and that, by the way, could happen in various channels. So let's say the customer inquiry came from SMS, and then the conversation seamlessly continues via email. The data is kept there. The entire history is there. You don't need to start a new conversation. But then when the conversation closed by the agent, they're able to one click summarize the entire conversation using AI. And I think that when you have that power and this data is being used properly, businesses can really play in a different league when it comes to customer experience.
right. It's a huge advantage to customers because they don't have to repeat themselves. It's amazing how many chats I've been on where I stated my question at the beginning, and somehow in the course of just looking up my account number and I don't know, blah, 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 maybe they're fielding multiple customer inquiries at the same time. Somehow, several minutes later, sometimes quite a few minutes later, I have to repeat the first thing that I typed in there. And it just seems ridiculous, right? This not only happens on chat, but other channels as well. So that's really a savings for customers and something that will make people happier. It's a big gripe that people have. But yes, this ability to summarize it and then to use it operationally to improve your service. But even more, when you have all these summaries, then you can say, look, here's quite a few things that have something to do with legal or accounts payable or accounts receivable or whoever. Share that with those guys. Make friends with these different departments and use customer insights like this to help them help you. And that'll be even a greater step further.
That's so true. You actually reminded me of another AI powered feature that we have that is called auto tagging the conversation. As you're
Hmm.
talking about um, what this conversation is all about. So if you predefine the subjects in your backend, then the AI can learn from the conversation, and then the conversation can be auto tagged. And when you have
Hmm.
auto tagging on and it's having like 99% accuracy, that takes your entire company to a different level.
That's right. So again, as long as that has feedback loops of some type, that's great. It sounds like it's absolutely on the right track. The only thing that started coming to my mind was when I'm watching the television on my, I have apps. I'm not subscribing to cable television or antenna television, but there's apps on the television.
Love that.
Those are using artificial intelligence to serve up what should be shown to me on my screen or suggested shows that I should watch. And sometimes it assumes things based on a certain mood that I was in at some time or some visitor or whatever, but there's no input opportunity for me to change that, right? So what if a customer is in a different situation than they were before? If there's a way for customers to insert, hey, um, I'm on a different path now, or a way for the artificial intelligence to pick that up, that's really great, and it sounds like you're on that path.
Totally. I think to your personal story with the apps and your TV and the auto recommendation and how the AI learn and suggests, I think that all of us were just sitting there and praying, how can I how can I do that myself? I don't need the AI to tell me, but
Hmm.
sometimes it can come and be as a good source, and sometimes it's not. It just depends really on what the use case is, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Great. So as we're wrapping up, I want to thank you so much, Lynn, for coming in today. Thank you so much for your insights and enlightening us. Um, And I want to thank everyone that listened. And if you want to hear more insights about customer experience, I encourage you to follow Lynn on her LinkedIn. Thank you.
Right on. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks so much, Ron.
Thank you, Lynn.